I think the ability to put together a club and say, okay, in this situation, are we going to have the pieces to do this? And do we have the pieces in AAA and AA to offset it? Because, teams like Baltimore, nobody's going to help you. You can't just go out there and go, hey, can you give me this guy I need right now? No, we're going to laugh while you're bleeding. So you got, those guys that come over and play in the last 4 innings in spring training, I spent a lot of time getting into them to know what we have and what we didn't have. And just sometimes I look at the front offices and they put together this team for opening day, knowing that you may run out there with that team maybe, 5 times all year. It's the other ones that really you find out what kind of depth you have.
To this topic, we've seen a lot of platooning going on with the Orioles specifically, and it's been a thing that we've kind of seen across the league too. But Ryan and I have talked about this as well. Is just there seems to be a lack of consistency when it comes to these younger guys coming up, and then they get sat for 6 days and they come back and expect to perform. Just kind of want to get your perspective on this. Could there be some changes that just get made with the current guys and just their consistency of play? Just let them play it out. Let them, it's already kind of not a great season. Might as well just change something up and let these guys just play rather than having them play for a couple of days, sitting them. We've seen some inconsistencies as far as the lineups are concerned. Just want to get your perspective on that.
Well, one, if and when they get through this, they're going to be so strong mentally and emotionally, because a lot of times this is the first time any of these guys have had really failure athletically. Okay. And I remember like yesterday, the first time it kind of hit me that I was at a level, that 4A player, I was going, wow, and I saw Don Mattingly and Steve Balboni. I knew I wasn't going to play that position. They had that covered, but I think I try to look at the positive. They all going to go through it. You hope they don't go through it as a group. It's like Ryan said, you know what a prospect is? A prospect is a prospect. These top 100 lists and top 30 of each club and whatever, should take a snapshot of them each year and then look at their accuracy rate. I'm going to go out and do the scouting combine and do the draft some for MLB Network. But I remember last year there was a guy throwing from shortstop, and he go, wow, he's throwing 90 miles an hour to first base. Buck, what do you think? I go, not a whole lot. He takes 3 steps to throw the ball, and he threw the last 2 in the 4th row. So he can't, if he could throw 90 flat-footed and accurately, he might get my attention. But there's so much to being a baseball player. I'm a big bio guy. If I look at a bio on a guy that's played baseball only on these travel clubs, it's a red flag for me because he hasn't seen much failure. He hasn't seen much adversity. Ryan, you played basketball. I know if I was a football coach, I'd be knocking on your door every day. But I bet you played other sports, whether it's lacrosse or golf or whatever, and the human body needs that downtime. I tell the parents all the time, if some guy's telling you, yeah, you're going to play on our travel team, we're going to play year-round, walk away, run. Don't get me started on that either. But I don't even think I answered your question there, did it?
So, just about the platooning part. So if we're saying right now, and platooning in general, there is a place for it, but it doesn't mean that with so many different positions that it's the end all. Like if a lefty, like the conversation started with, like, say, Jackson Holiday, where they're saying, hey, Jackson's got to work on facing lefties, but he wasn't facing lefties, right? So when is that conversation accurate to platoon? And when is it saying, you know what, if he's one of our guys, we got to live and die with the results, but understand it's the process that we need him to get through.
Yeah. That's a key word, Ryan, the process. And the thing that allows you to stay with a player, where he can develop through that process, is his ability to defend. Can he defend while he's scuffling? That's another reason we brought Manny up a little early. I mean, he was actually over in Bowie every day at 1:30 with Bobby Dickerson. We were working him out at third base. Nobody knew that he was preparing to come up and play third. But we knew he would impact our club defensively. But if you're having trouble defending and you're going through that development stage in the big leagues, it's a double whammy. It doesn't work. You're not driving any and you're letting in one. So, the defensive side of it, but the left, I know when we first got Paul O'Neill, we had traded Roberto Kelly for him, who was, big-time center fielder for the New York Yankees. But I had to have the conversation with Paul. He was hitting 190 lifetime against left-handed pitching at that point. I said, hey, we're going to get you off in New York. Everybody's looking at you with a microscope because of who we traded. You're going to play against right-handers, and at some point we'll open the door and you'll be against the left-handers too. Oh my God, Ryan, he was so ticked off at me. Oh, it was, I said, hey, at some point the gates will open and you'll get your opportunity. And he did, because every time a left-hander came in there and he stayed in the game, he would act like I was the pitcher. But I think you also got to look at who the left-handed starter is. You can't just become blind, like Jamie Moyer or one of the soft toss and finesse guys. There's not many of them anymore. You look at it differently. Not every left-handed, just because a guy's left-handed doesn't mean, I know they tried to platoon Mattingly in rookie ball, and he asked the manager, said, what do you mean I'm not playing? He goes, well, there's a left-handed pitcher tonight. I think sometimes we put this in their head, too, that you're not supposed to hit them.
Yeah, I think that it's the perception, mind over matter with everything. And if you can, half the battle is that if you have the belief that you can do it. And if you have doubt set in there, that's the worst thing as a hitter. Or when you're up at the plate, you're thinking about other things that isn't just, hey, what is my approach? And let me see this baseball.
Yeah,
right?
Think of it like this. I guarantee you had a coach somewhere along the line that you guys had a bad free throw shooting night. So what'd you do in practice? Everybody shot 50 free throws. Okay, the next time you got to the line, your arm got stiff because you said, oh my gosh, this is something we've been terrible at. And it was like trying to get it up there. I mean, sometimes you can bring too much attention to something and it becomes a mental thing. I think, hey, Ryan, if you make this free throw, we don't run, wind sprints. That's a lot of pressure on a guy for his teammates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. You wonder though, hey, pressure's a real thing. That's the human element. The phrase, you can't measure a heartbeat. It's in those circumstances you find out. And in baseball, you got to try to stay as relaxed as possible, Buck. That's the ultimate goal. Maybe you got to switch something up. Maybe you got to go listen to a different song, put your uniform on a different way.
What? I always looked at, with the Preakness and the Derby and everything. I was listening to a jockey talk the other day, young lady, and she said, I'm like, the jockey's like the manager in baseball, and the trainer's like the general manager in baseball. And you got to be tight. You got to be on the same page. You got to feel comfortable with having disagreements. But he said, it used to be the manager was also a trainer. You train guys, but they've kind of taken that away. They just want you to be the jockey and ride the horse. And, if you can't, I think what's missing sometimes is pushback guys. I used to love to surround myself with guys who would disagree with me. That's why I love Brady Anderson. Brady was one of the most honest, straight up. He'd tell you exactly how he feels, loyal, couldn't tell a lie. He would, oh God, if you heard some of the arguments we had, you thought we hated each other. And I loved the guy. And some of the meetings you have in winter meetings and off season where scouts are passionate and screaming at each other, then they go have 2 beers together. And, if you were in some of the meetings we had over the years, you would think that there was going to be a free-for-all. But that's the way it was. It was passionate men feeling comfortable about voicing their opinion, even if it disagreed with somebody. I mean, I had a lot of, you listen to Gene Michael, one of his meetings with the Yankees, oh my gosh, he thought somebody was going to kill each other.
I mean, I think that it's healthy to be able to speak openly, honestly, and be able to then get it out there, and then it's done. Then it's out. It's over, and it allows you perspective. And that's where I kind of look at least in Baltimore right now, a certain way of baseball and how you develop things. And we're not going to get into the whole analytics versus baseball and philosophically all of that. But I do think pushback with, hey, this could be too much, and maybe I need to rethink what we're doing. I think that's something we might see in Baltimore here from this part of the season till next.